I want to give Rebecca Brewster, friend of the show, hashtag RGR, a couple of choices here. If you had to celebrate, you only get to pick one, and I'm going to leave International Supply Chain Professional Day off of this equation because you'll immediately go to that and be a goody two-shoes. Daniel Boone Day, National Chocolate Ice Cream Day, or National VCR Day. Which one are you celebrating, Rebecca Brewster, and good morning?
Good morning. I have to go with National Chocolate Ice Cream Day.
Nice. So you're a chocolate ice cream lady. Now, you a pure? Are you the kind of person you eat just a bowl of chocolate ice cream, nothing on it? Is that your bag?
No, if ice cream is in the sentence, I don't care what else goes with it. I'm all in.
I understand. You're a purist. Yeah, you're a purist. Like people who love baseball, you're an absolute purist. I didn't expect any different from you, by the way. Didn't expect it. How you doing?
I'm wonderful, and I have to tell you, I'm so excited to be on this platform with you this morning for the first time because my biggest fan out there, my husband Kevin Brewster, can now go on the Book of Face and hear his wife talking to you. So I love it.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? It is so much fun. And by the way, we don't get a chance to really kind of interact with people on Facebook other than me taking a good hard look in the morning when people start logging in. And to see you there on a regular basis, just dropping in to say good morning to people is really fun. And it's great to see, you had made the comment that I think Tara said on the air how great it was to actually hear Dre as a genuine personality on the air, to hear more and more of him. As a presence.
Absolutely.
And we love that kind of input and that kind of feedback. And the fact that, by the way, as you know from our long conversations, and Dave's got plenty to ask you this morning, you and I are both data junkies. And the fact that I have access for the first, I've been doing this job almost a decade now. It'll be a decade. I get blurred now about when I started writing for Dave and when I started doing the show on the air. We have never ever had access to our numbers, ever, period. We've been told things. We were told things to encourage us. We were told things to discourage us. But the idea of being able to see both anecdotal evidence and data-driven evidence is such an incredibly positive thing. I was reminded about why it is you love your job so much. Isn't that the fact?
Absolutely. And, we live by that, too. I mean, we all want validation that what we're doing is impactful and useful for people. And one of our key metrics at ATRI is how many downloads of our reports there are. And so I just want to say thanks to all of your listeners over the years who have heard us talk about a specific study online with you and then gone to our website, truckingresearch.org, and downloaded a copy of that research. That's what we're here for. That's our mission, to put that data and analysis out there. So understanding and seeing how many people download those studies is really, it's a rush for us at ATRI.
That is awesome. We used to make the joke about folks can download it and use it or abuse it as they will, and they do.
They do, and Dave, I credit you with that phrase all the time when I'm out doing presentations. We hope they use it for the good, but we know there are those out there who unfortunately sometimes abuse our findings for their own purposes.
Yeah, it's funny with the numbers. You can make them flow in any direction you want them to flow for a while, and then the truth comes up with the actual number that you're looking for. You guys have been really busy. Well, you've always been busy, but this year seems to be almost kind of to me, hanging around with you for as long as I have, and then you've been doing this for a while too with ATRI. This year's list of research priorities seems a little bit deeper or bigger, more meaty. Am I resonating with you at all here?
No, you are, and this was a new research advisory committee, so that's the group of individuals representing all parts of the industry who figure out what research we should be doing at ATRI, where are there the biggest needs for additional data and analysis. And that group, there's 36, 37 people on the current rack right now. Mm-hmm. They turn over every 2 years. So the 25, 26 rack, new group, this was their first meeting when they met in March, and then they came up with a list of priorities that then goes to the ATRI Board of Directors, who ultimately has to approve those studies because it's, the Institute's contributions we're using to pay for that research and do that research. So the board approved the list that the RAC identified in May. And you're right. First of all, a couple notable things that jump out to me is what I love is there are studies that ATRI has done in the past that this RAC said, things have changed, new data, we need you to update that research. The research was so powerful and impactful when it first came out. Go get the new data and see what the trends are. And that's with the rising insurance costs, and that was the number one research priority, but also the efficacy of entry-level driver training. So we did a study back in 2008 that looked at the safety impacts of driver training. What training were drivers receiving? How long were they spending on specific topics? How long were they spending in the cab of a truck versus in the classroom? And what are the safety impacts of that? Well, fast forward now to current day, and we have the entry-level driver training rule or mandate. And so this RAC said, you know what? That first study was very telling. Let's go see how things have changed with the ELDT rules. So a couple of these titles might sound familiar, but they are new, deeper dives into both of those topics.
You know, one of the things about the efficacy of entry-level driver training on safety outcomes, that's a mouthful, and it should be a game changer, and we should know how that game has changed. Should that information be coming from you, or should it be coming from DOT? I mean, why are you doing that? You know, you understand what I'm asking?
Right.
We're grateful. I
Yeah.
mean, we're all grateful over here. I'm grading, but we're grateful
But you're
for
the
you.
industry. Why is the industry doing this? I mean, I know you
Right.
should,
Well,
and it's great, but we should be depending on them to do this.
Well, and I think the power of ATRI is our trusted third-party status. So, yes, we are industry stakeholders, no question about it, and no question that the industry is very vested in ATRI's success and making sure ATRI is studying the right things. But we are that objective outside party that brings our research knowledge to these topics. So, you know, quite frankly, there might be some who, if the DOT published a study on this very topic, might say, well, you know, that's the DOT pumping up or whatever their own program. You know, everybody
Yeah, no matter
can
what
be
they say,
skeptical
you're
of
going to
those
have,
studies.
there's going to be a
Right.
shadow over it because of the story. Yeah, I got you now. Yeah,
Right.
I understand
So, you know,
that. Yeah.
I think we're in a great position to do it, and quite frankly, you know, I think the DOT was very appreciative of the first one we did back in 2008, and so I think they will look forward to, and hopefully benefit from the results of this particular study.
Well, you led me. Yeah, you walked right through the same door I was going to go through too, because it's not just you guys. It's not just company owners, fleet management. It's not just drivers, but it's the government, federal, and hopefully states as well, who actually use and or abuse the information they get from you guys, because the government does come to, they look at everything you guys do very seriously and use it.
They do, and you know, I mentioned how we track the downloads of our study. It's so gratifying to me when I look through, because we get an email every time someone downloads, so we can see who's downloading. And the diversity of individuals across all levels of government, federal, state, even local governments who download our studies, that really means a lot to me. Obviously, our primary audience is the trucking industry, but when we see the public sector engage so frequently with our research, that tells me we're hitting the mark. They trust us. They rely on our data and hopefully put the findings to use within their various levels of government.
Without giving ATRI any credit. But that's fine.
That's all right. We love it. We love it.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that the credit, you know, and I'm not telling you how you should receive credit, but the credit you get is those downloads, and the credit you get is the continued support. I mean, that's the big thing, is the fact that, anytime you're trusted as an honest broker, people try to ensure that you stay in that role, which is why you have so many diverse stakeholders in the game. Because anybody that thinks that trucking moves along on one route together as a unified front also thinks there's only one trucking industry in America, right? I mean, you guys literally cover you really cover the gamut, don't you, in regards to all of the different holders, right down to the rack itself. I mean, it's not just it's not just carriers, it's not just independent operators, it's also law enforcement. I mean, I hate to have you repeat yourself. Give our listeners a sense of how big the coalition of folks who have a vested stake in making what you guys do work.
Right, and that's what makes those RAC meetings so fascinating, is they all come from very different perspectives. So, of course, we have trucking fleet representatives, but we have big carriers and small carriers on there, one truck operators to, 1,000 truck operators. And within those organizations, we have different positions. So sometimes we have a safety director, sometimes we have a CFO, chief financial officer. They just represent different parts of the organization, so their perspectives are different. We, of course, have some of our friends on the allied side, those people who supply things and products to the industry represented, so insurance industry, defense attorneys. But we have a law enforcement officer, so a motor carrier enforcement officer, roadside inspection officer, there providing his or her perspective. We have a federal government representative. Currently, that individual is from the Environmental Protection Agency. We always have someone from a state Department of Transportation, a state DOT. What's so fascinating about our current DOT representative, and I know you've had her on this program, is Erica Denny from the Colorado DOT. She actually was with a motor carrier. Her family has a trucking business where she worked, and now she's on the public sector side at the DOT. So it's all these very different perspectives coming together in a room to review. In a typical cycle, the RAC will review 25 to 30 individual research proposals, and every RAC member gets the opportunity to weigh in on the value they think that research will bring to the broader industry, but also bringing their perspective of their experience. I know we were talking about the entry-level driver training study at the RAC meeting, and we had some very cool insight from our road team captain, Emily Plummer, who drives for Prime, on the topic of entry-level driver training. And just hearing from a driver what her perspectives were on this study was fascinating.
Really quickly, if you guys are just joining us, we are joined by Rebecca Brewster. I just call her the head honcho over at ATRI. I mean, that's the gig, that's the job. I wanted to give you guys a couple of fun shout-outs here. Paul Starkey, about an earlier conversation, wanted to know if the machines that Cody talked about have their green cards or their CDLs. Colin, by the way, told us for the 4th of July that he turned 30 and played disc golf with 6 friends. That's a great 4th of July. Well executed.
Have you ever played disc golf?
I have, by the way. City Park has a course.
Well, they have one at Lafreniere, too. Rebecca, have you ever played
disc golf?
Disc golf?
So pretty much any question you're going to ever ask me about sports is going to be a no.
Okay.
So basically, Rebecca defines...
Just going to put that out there.
Rebecca's become a big fan of the phrase sports ball. So what sports ball are we talking about on this particular day? A couple of other quick shout-outs. Our good friend Scat Pack shouted out from Scat Pack's Garage and Trucking. We need more like Rick Gobble in trucking. Paul agreed, said yes, we do. Joe J said it was great to hear Dan over here. Good morning, Rick. And Bruce Almighty and Paul said on point, Rick. And Kevin, actually our good friend Trucker Bosun, says good morning to you, Rebecca Brewster, who joins us this morning. We talk a lot about what has been and what is to come. I want to briefly touch on that because Dave's got some other stuff that he talked to you about talking about. But really quickly, tell us what's up for you this week. What are you looking at?
Oh, this week I am very busy. We've got several new research products we're going to put out. So we published a study not too long ago on how to expand truck parking at public rest areas. And one thing, particularly when we have a study like that that's focused on the public sector or opportunities for folks at different levels of government to be able to take the findings and run with them, we produce a one-pager because let's face it, as much as we love our ATRI studies, getting a member of Congress to read a full ATRI study might be a lift with all they have going on. So we do these
Getting them to read green eggs and
Oh, my
ham
God,
is
yeah.
is like, I mean, they only do that in a
Please.
filibuster. What are you talking about?
Yikes.
I mean, come on.
Okay, let's say Rebecca Brewster doesn't get political. She's just realistic about.
That's my
who
job.
reads
That's
the
my
ATRI
job.
studies.
you get to be nonpartisan in a .org. I get to be .com. That's what I get to be. You know.
Absolutely. And we're also finishing up and likely to release next week our study that we have done on driver demographics. And so we, throughout the history of ATRI, have the benefit of multiple and years and in fact decades worth of driver surveys that have included driver responses. And so this research will take a look at using our survey data, data from OIDA, as well as data from the federal government, looking at sort of what the today's trucker looks like versus what they used to look like in terms of the demographics of the industry, and where that might open up some new pathways for the industry that have not been fully explored. For instance, young adults who are aging out of the foster care system. And so we have a drill down on what are the opportunities there. So that one will be coming out in the not too distant future. So we're doing a lot of final reviews as we do here.
You know, Dave and I look at a lot of the reports as they come out, and we actually have discussions about them. I will tell you, for very selfish reasons, as you probably can guess, the one you just mentioned is going to be of particular interest to us. Because it's also going to mean, I'll tell our listeners what I'm up to here. We're going to look at that report as well as everybody out there should. If you own a small carrier, if you own a small trucking company, you need to see who is out there because it's going to affect the way you recruit. We need to see who is out there because it's going to affect the way we program, because we then have a double obligation. We have to make sure the people that we know are listening, and we know who they are because we can look at our numbers, but we also have to look at your numbers and see where the trends are in regards to onboarding new people in the industry. We want to get our hands on them. We want them listening here. And any carrier is going to want to know who is coming into the workforce in the biggest numbers and how it is they can actually secure those people to retain them for the future to build up their fleets, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, we've done separate studies looking at how do we make this industry more attractive to young people for driving positions. So that one we released several years ago. And then last year we released a very thorough examination of how we make this industry more attractive for women to come into driving positions. Had a lot of great input from women who had been in this industry from as much as 30 plus years to those who were just 2 years into their professional driving career. That was a fascinating study, and that is one that produced an industry action plan. So we identified what are those challenges for women coming into driving positions and, more importantly, staying in them, and then what can the industry do about it. So a very thorough checklist at the end of that report. If you're a motor carrier, here's what you can do to address those challenges. If you're a truck driver training school, here's what you can do to address those challenges and make it easier for women to come into your programs and successfully complete your programs. And then if you're a driver, if you're considering a career in trucking, here's what makes you aware of these challenges and what you as a driver can do. Or if you've been here for a long time and you're just frustrated by a certain aspect of it, there are some discrete steps laid out based on all the data collection and analysis we did that drivers themselves can do. So we continually, because workforce issues are so prevalent in the industry, we continually look at it based on the direction from our RAC, how we can get over those hurdles. And I know, Jimmy, you had Alex Leslie on our team talking about a study we're going to release in the not too distant future, looking at how we bring in more diesel techs into this industry, bring them in and keep them in. And so we have a very unique role at ATRI to be able to have our RAC identify these challenges for us, and then we design the research methodology and go collect the data and analyze it so that everybody benefits in the industry.
I just wish you were more passionate about onboarding younger people, and particularly women. I can't hear it in your voice, Rebecca. It is exciting,
I
though.
know.
It's exciting, though, because it feels like this. I mean, because what data always has been for research is always about trying to see the mosaic, to take all those little bits and all those pieces and all those numbers and to see what the picture actually looks like, because we're all having these puzzles we're trying to solve in trucking. How do we get more young people on board? How do we get more young diesel technicians on board? How do we get more women on board? Because after all, it's a lot of the workforce that isn't working for this particular force of the industry. And it becomes like, how do we use the data to solve the problem? And it's really exciting, isn't it?
It is, and I guess one of the, biggest challenges I still wake up and think about in the middle of the night is, we do such great work and we put it out there. How do we get it in the hands of the people who can put it to work? And, I think about people say, well, I just came across we just released our update to the operational cost of trucking. I just came across this, never knew you all existed. And I'm like, where have you been? Because our website is so
not
full of
listening
great
to us.
information.
That's their problem, Rebecca. If they listen to us, they get a chance to get to know you. Shame on them.
What do you think the percentage of people, if you stood at the door of the fuel desk entrance at a truck stop with a clipboard and says, do you know what FMCSA stands for? How many guys out there, women out there, do you think would know? I'll bet less than 50%.
Yeah, and that's a challenge.
Yeah,
that's a challenge.
I know, right? Because we think we're speaking to the entire industry. We're speaking to the stakeholders in this industry, not the steering wheel holders.
Right.
You know?
Right. No, I know. So, getting the great research that the ATRI team does, and I can take no credit for the research. I'm just on the back end doing the final reviews and getting it ready and being the mouthpiece, if you will, to make sure people are aware of what we do. But how do we increase our penetration in the industry so that it serves its intended purpose, which is to raise the bar for everyone in the trucking industry?
One of the things, two of the things actually on the list.
Go for three.
Going back to the list of the priorities in terms of research, the efficacy of entry-level driver training, that's about people, primarily. Safety impacts of in-cab monitoring, and then capitalizing on telematics data. Those two kind of work hand in hand in a sense, at least from the descriptions of what the research will entail. But in-cab monitoring has pushed out a percentage. I don't know how many, because a lot of people talk big and then don't really act big. So, well, if they do that, I'm leaving. Well, you don't leave, and stuff like that. But people have left the industry. We talked a little bit earlier about the demise of the 5 and 5 split sleeper berth thing. We lost a lot of great husband and wife empty nester teams out there who were planning on just living out their lives together on the road, serving the country, but having a good... So all of that goes by the wayside. But we have people, technology is taking older people out of these trucks, but that same technology should be an attraction to younger people, and I think it is, because I remember 30 years ago a guy said, well, there are 6 computers under the hood of this truck. It was like, wait a minute now. Every computer under the hood of that truck has 6 other computers working for it. I mean, how many? 100 computers under the truck?
Absolutely.
So that should be very appealing to kids. So where is the missing link?
Because they're not selling it. They're not selling that.
Yeah.
They're not selling that. They're not selling that. And they're also... I'm sorry, Rebecca, I'm on my high horse now. The thing is that the best recruiting device any company has is its drivers, and they're not using their drivers to sell that. That's it, simple, flat out. I'd like to see if the data bears that out, but the best commercial spots we always run are the ones where drivers actually give testimonials for their companies. They're not using the older drivers or the younger drivers they do on board to bring in more drivers. Love your thoughts on that.
No, I agree, and I mean, I think about my very first start in this industry was with a private fleet. It was back in the 80s. They had the first edition of trip recorders on the vehicles, and I got to work with the data that came off the trip trip recorder. But honestly, the driver resistance was so high because it was going to track MPG, speed, and hard braking, and that was it. They were not very sophisticated systems. But when we worked with the drivers and they understood the benefits that would accrue to them, either through incentive programs or just better understanding what they were doing when they were doing their jobs, made it such a selling point for them. And you're right. Get the driver buy-in on these systems, and they are your best recruiting tool.
You're our best recruiting tool, by the way. I'll tell you that right now. No, I'm serious, man. Your support of this, opportunity that we have engaged in has been one of the nicest things that we've gotten a chance to experience over the last couple of 2 months, as a matter of fact. Like I said, I can't get over it, by the way. If I had any sense following your advice, I would simply send the 2 kids that are to my left right now back to a supply chain school and get them to be the host on the air, because that straight up would fix my problems. Getting a couple of young voices on the air as well, too, might make a difference. Young voices that actually care about the men and women that drive. Rebecca, thank you so much for making time for us. We love having you on, and a great first way
My
to
pleasure.
get you on the platform. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Rebecca Brewster, guys, go to truckingresearch.org. Keep it really simple.
Mm-hmm.
If you do that, it opens up a whole world of data and possibilities. I tell people who want to get to know about trucking, along with some of the trade journals, it's a hell of a place to start, isn't it?
And I get all of the research from ATRI the same way you would get it. They don't send it to me. I go online and fill out the little
They
thing.
don't sell it either.
And and hit the button and poof, there it is.
You get it.
Absolutely free.
They don't sell it. They're not harking it. There's no shakedown coming later on. They are not for profit, and they are bolstered by many people in the industry. It is there, available for the big and the small